Let's start this. I normally I get up here and make people laugh politically. And I was talking about the screw of the wall. Some of the poems that I read was from this book before it was actually published. Anyways, but something happened to me during our now 2-year vacation called COVID. And last year, 2021 in January, was the anniversary of Gulf War. And I wrote these poems during January and February of 2021. So in reference to time, we're talking about the previous months, which was the first few months of the pandemic, where we were isolated. At least I was isolated with my wife. And some things resurfaced. Plus, I'm working with Tupelo Press in conjunction with the project they were doing. I wrote these poems called 30 Years Ago, Life in the First Gulf War. It's a longer piece, but I'm going to try to read it's actually a long poem, but it's a fast read. They're basically sonnets. There's 50 sonnets, and I'm going to read a few of them today. Sonnets 1 through 19, it's a pretty fast read, and 45 through 50. So bear with me. This one, like I said, I normally make people laugh. Hopefully today I just make you think a little bit. I thought something was sliding there for a minute. Okay, thank you. 30 years ago, I was waking up on a military bunk far away from the familiar place I called my home, far away from my wife, my new kid. Before last year, it was just something old, stuck in the past, something I had did. This past summer, it invaded my sleep. Pandemic isolation gave it life. After my wife kept insisting for years, I finally took up the long offer to talk to any VA counselor about my resurfacing PTSD. I never thought I was that far broken. Everyone I loved disagreed with me. 30 years ago, I was a young man, strong, powerful, full of great ideas, spending the shortest birthday on a plane, headed into the great gamut of time, east on the 20th, on the last month of this burnt tortilla hemisphere life. Truthfully, my notions were nothing short of a coyote crapping in a park. Kept a journal during my time at war. Reading it now as a much older me makes me cringe at my negativity. How the hell did I even make it out back to any candid understanding or even out of my noisy 20s? 30 years ago, I wrote some thoughts down about the fellas, the bosses, the war, the outright damn anger and jealousy I had abruptly established within for whatever I thought was happening back at home with my beautiful young wife, about some uncommitted old jackass using high religion and loneliness to make a move in her time of weakness, as was the usual in the stories passed on among a few of the now heartbroken, tearful young men with fresh Dear John letters. I guess I just wanted to get ahead that pain of getting one. I never did. 30 years ago, 98 men died. Ras Al Mashab, southern coast from Kazi, all in one morning, all in the same plane, all foreign soldiers at war just like me, all but the pilots were from Senegal, all the crew members, Saudi nationals, all coming back from a Ramadan trip, a pilgrimage allowed during ceasefire, all would receive a hero's welcoming, all in attentive robes of body bags. As for Saudis, they interred that day, a damn tragedy within victory, yet not all of them died that somber morn. Of 3 survivors, 1 makes it to me. 30 years ago, I clearly recall on the 21st day of the 3rd month, warmth of a sleep on a military cot, sleeping bag all zipped up except my nose. The days, they were hot, the nights not so much. I was dreaming I was already home, dreaming of making sweet love to my wife, wanting to get going on building dreams, wanting to hold my beautiful daughter, wanting to create a basketball team of nothing more than very tall children. Did I mention I was once pretty good at playing the Aztec-inspired game? Except Mexicans don't get that credit. 30 years ago, still in the same dream, did I mention that I once qualified to run the hurdles at the state level on that most now famous Texas Longhorn track? Or how I ended up top of my class but skipped college to become a medic? Anyhow, all that was old by that time. Sometimes dreams are passed down to your children. I was hoping to keep it moving on by reproducing myself through my wife over and over and over, except for this little speed bump called war, which caught up to me by surprise that day, found me full of dreams only to change them. 30 years ago, death was flying near. I had finished the early fire watch. I had been sleeping for a few hours. I heard a soft voice in the far distance, comforting, warm, unrecognizable, yet no other sound. I kept on sleeping. A short time later, sensing commotion, trying to wake, and then came the screaming. The current fire watch is frantic. Get up! Something's wrong! But what is it? A plane? A what? And bodies everywhere. A plane fell less than a mile from our base, flew right over us before going down. Are we under attack? All I could think. 30 years ago, disoriented, like a plane unable to see the ground, the heavy fog of the last lines I wrote, unzipping my bag with my rushing blood, trying to collect my sleep-deprived thoughts, trying to figure it all out and fast. What was I stepping out into today? Whispering for God's mercy on my soul, putting on my boots, holstering my gun. It's probably too late for my gas mask. Stepping on out from safe birthing tent, straight into a blaze of burnt over oil, early in the morning, early in life. I was wrong about everything I thought. 30 years ago, definitely strange, the least of evolving situations. Running to the call of a formation, the first 10-ton truck had already left. The second fills up fast. The rest stay home. Waiting on whatever was coming in. It didn't take long for the first patient, assessed only on still being alive. Locked and stiff, screaming for his very life. Solidified and burns crisp to the touch. The assigned doctor shouted the order. Take everything off that you can get off. Anything that could actually come off. Carefully starting like a cold machine. 30 years ago, the smell of burnt flesh. Everyone knows you can never forget. In my dreams, I'm the one that's screaming. But that's not how it actually went down. Help me, he pleads as I well up inside, looking deep into scared brown eyes like mine. Help me, please, over and over again. In the only English he might have known. Stay with me, brother, I soon responded. Began to remove each religious bead, melted deep into his neckline and chest, placing his Quran somewhere near his side, a scene of mercy between warriors, a dying Muslim, a wayward Christian. 30 years ago, the doctor ordered, get a line into him, pump in fluids. As we received a few more of his mates, a closing bag catches my attention, a short piece away, one already gone. Stealing seconds away while I hunted on my knees through my nerves desperately, any decent vein to push an IV. Well practiced, good at getting them going, collapsed in vain at the regular spots, except maybe between his groin and thigh. Eventually got in, breaking some bones, from time to time coming back to the spot. A filled body bag nearby on the floor. 30 years ago, it never ended. In the process of removing debris, prepping the patient for the field OR, flipping him to his side to see his back, the coils of plane seats seared to his rear, sears he must wear for the rest of his life, scars he must wear for the rest of his life. How long that was depended on his God, where his flesh slid off like molting snake, exhausted on destabilization. What seemed like hours was shorter instead, strongly affected, never learned his name. Last I saw the Senegal soldier, loaded on the helo, barely alive, taken one from death. Someone else will die. 30 years ago, a chopper lifted, the one saved, given up to the blue skies, to his country, his kinship, his Allah, hoping within time he could forgive me for removing what remained of his clothes, left bare naked to Arabian winds, for moving about religious relics despite their baptism by jet fuel flames, for tearing off his skin, busting his bones, pushing aside what survived of his groin, for a shocking evasive assertion, for slicing up the sides of his burnt chest like a hungry sharp knife through a brisket, to halt tightening from strangling his lungs. 30 years ago, that same afternoon, after a long talk with disparity, alone to my thoughts and raw reflections, trying to understand what just happened, I boarded a truck to go see the sight down on the other side of the flight line, less than a mile from my very own tent, a mangled plane, a ton of body bags. Docs are now told that they are not needed, nothing left for the corpsmen to rescue. Saudi men will take care of the rescue. I still have that photo somebody took, a huge blurry mess. From a short distance, faint echoes until a few months ago. 30 years ago, serious training, the worst thing that could happen in a war, from a nuclear to a biological to chemical, setting up for the worst that man could muster against fellow man, that sophisticated stupidity, a Congress throwing about monkey shit, recusing themselves from their former selves, distancing intelligence by long miles, as here we are now, 10 months since removed, the longest spring break nobody wanted, behind computers like futures of old, wrapped in shreds of bureaucratic red tape. Give me back my mop gear, I want to live. 30 years ago, on this very day, I was running for my own existence between makeshift buildings, dodging comm lines, one of them fiercely closelining a friend, leaving him behind, gasping for air, yelling for him to get up and come on, headed for safety between foundations off a freshly moved structure found nearby, frantically wrestling with all my gear, sweet sandwiched by sleeping concrete pillars, donning my gas mask while the sirens blared, pointing my pistol to the dark heavens, wishing to stop the scuds that were coming. Tears welled up as my life flashed before me. 30 years ago, still remembering what happened so fast that long night before about the scud that almost took us out. Some scream firing away as it flew by, splashing the water, but never went off. And if it had, what about my young wife, my baby, and fatherless statistics? Who would this damn war really convenience now that it actually got going? For what? Oil? My life for godless black gold? It is what makes America so great. While service members sacrifice themselves obedient to a constitution, politicians hoard all its benefits. 30 years ago, sirens were constant, mostly in the early part of the war, alarming us up from whatever dreams until we left for forward positions. While we remained in the foreign city, their defenses feared the Iraqi scuds. Some had already taken lives elsewhere. Loud, repetitive, sounding off each night in pitches that made any stomach turn. Running away from buildings for cover, getting caught tired and so unprepared, began to lay in bed already dressed, weapon loaded, gas mask at the ready. Even in my sleep, I remained alert. 30 years ago, I recall the night, a few weeks after I came back home. Typical evening, nothing out of place. I had drunk a few beers watching a game, Atlanta versus New York. The Braves won. Then I went to bed. Work started early. She said, she tried to get me up from bed. I wasn't on it, I was under it. I was yelling loud, she said the next day, telling her to get down to stay alive. A contorted face in a man-made storm. I can't recall it ever happened or why my wife then was so scared of me. At night, the firehouse sirens seemed so clear. 30 years ago, flying to the front, early in the war, before the big push, the transport helicopter lifted up into the bluest skies I'd seen that month. 2 of our squads on board Marine Airlines, gunner by the door, manning the big one, looking at the ground, beautiful, quiet, despite the immediate chopper noise caught in the moment of his creation. The back opening view was picturesque until the fear of a volatile sky infected me with an old memory. I was a child with a new pellet gun shooting at birds as they flew through the air. 30 years ago, then it came to this. I thought about going flying today. Somehow found myself in an argument. That's right, all about a damn bag of chips. All about people that just won't listen to what's really going on deep inside. I know they love me, but I'm not the same. My physical health isn't what it was. Pulleys to my brains are on their last belt. This quarantine has brought back some bad dreams. I thought about going flying today. Nosedive right into the bluest skies without wings. Straight into a beautiful suicide. I thought about going flying today. 30 years ago, yes. That's 3 whole decades. This body has twisted and turned since then. As I write these words, this damn pace quickens. Sometimes feel like I'm running out of time, like the assigned hourglass full of sand. That desert sand wants to take me out now, falling faster than I can plug a hole. Sometimes I want to beat it to death's point, take myself out of play and laugh loudly, mocking my own demise and loss of will, wishing that I could punch all the pain out to see what normal is, how normal lives. That will never be. I am what I am, staring down sand, death, matching blow for blow. 30 years ago, holding the last straw, I know now there was no way around. I knew I had to get help for myself. Wife knew long ago I didn't listen. I didn't want to talk about the war, about the feelings, about what bothered me. I didn't want to relive anything, especially some of the tough moments, some of which I have now written about. I thought it was a thing of pride to do, to hold it all in and not show weakness, because I was built to take all this pain, not be labeled another statistic. I was so damn wrong about what I thought. 30 years ago, time bears forgiveness. Even though the memories and bad dreams don't stop flowing, I'm learning to forgive myself for the wrong things I did, for all the right things I didn't do, forgive all the things that happened to me, all of them centered on this little war. That anger, distrust, disappointments, the passing over, recognition, even the ex-friend who cut me open, really hoped that he got back with this girl, went on to live a good and happy life. To this end, some things are left to work out, so some things will remain unsaid for now. 30 years ago, yet I'm still here. I'm still there, in my gas mask and lost in the desert. Misplaced my base camp while I was sleeping, screaming the names I never remember, holding my M16 at the ready, empty, bloody, despite Geneva card. I dream of a metaphor that puzzles me. I made it home, yet why am I still there? Removing my mask, I die in the sun. The dream replays a lot more than I would. 30 years ago, yet I'm still there, in my gas mask and lost in the desert. Misplaced my base camp while I was sleeping, screaming the names I never remembered. Thank you.
Thank you, Juan.